Thank you for joining me again on this evening, brothers and sisters. I'm Brother Bob Covey. I'm with the Assembly in Yeshua in Kingdom City. Tonight's message is going to be the 6 seals of the Olivet prophecy. As I've been doing on the previous messages, this all has to do with our near future. But first, I'm going to start off with a little before Revelation 6 seals. These are things that we observe ourselves will go through long before that. The first scripture comes from the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. Blessed are they that which persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in the heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 9 through 12, but they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was. But you have fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, charity, and patience, persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me in Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra, what persecutions I endured, but out of them all the Master delivered me. On John chapter 16, verse 2, whosoever kills you, this likely refers to the persecution of the believers, will suffer under the anti-Messiah during the Great Tribulation. Spoken in of Dan chapter 7, verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a times, and a dividing of times. That's 3.5 years. The note on Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, until the times, and dividing of times, representing 3.5 years of the 7-year tribulation of Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, at which time the man of sin will blaspheme Yahweh and make war with the saints. Revelations chapter 13, verses 6 through 7, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Yahweh, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them, and power was given over him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Not trying to go against scriptures, but I feel we suffer persecution before that from non-believers. I believe that we today will possibly go through 3 tribulations. And these were mentioned in the last part of my last message, is the United States in prophecy. The first tribulation will be from non-believers of today. Second one, when the anti-Messiah comes, and the third one, the great tribulation that we will all go through. Acts chapter 14, verse 22, confirming the souls of the disciples and exhorting them to continue in the faith, and that we must, through much tribulation, enter into the kingdom of Yahweh. As long as we ourselves continue on the true path of righteousness, we will survive to be able to gain everlasting life in the kingdom. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 17, for our light affliction, which is but a moment work for us as far as exceedingly an external weight of glory. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, but in all things approving ourselves as the ministers of Yahweh, in much patience, in afflictions, in necessities, in distresses, in stripes, in imprisonments, in turmoils, in labors, in watching, in fasting, by preparedness, by knowledge, by long suffering, by kindness, by Holy Spirit, by love unfeigned, by the word of truth, by the power of Yahweh, by the armor of the righteousness on the right hand and on the left, by honor and dishonor, by evil report and good report, as deceiver and yet true, as unknown and yet well known, as dying and behold, we live as chastened but and not killed. We have to have control over our lives. No one else can do it for us. It is us that needs to control our lives. Read the scriptures. Learn from them. Gain the knowledge they have to hold. For these are the way of our life that we are going to be living shortly. And I'm saying shortly because Yahweh considers one day 1,000 years, and 1,000 years one day. So I say shortly because we don't know how many days. We know it's less than 1,000 years, but we don't know how many days. Women have no official standing in the assembly. Their influence in the training up of the children is crucial. Often it is not the father, but the mother that has the pivotal role in developing their children's dedication. Such a role as this should never, repeat, never be overlooked. Look at the world today. Look at these kids running rampant, out of control. Teenagers shooting up schools, killing other children. What is this nation coming to? I would say it, but I won't say it well, I will. We're going to hell in a handbasket. That's what's going on. Be therefore ashamed of the testimony of our master, nor of me, his prisoner, but be you partaker of the difficulties of the good news according to the power of Yahweh. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, yea, and all that will live piously in Messiah Yeshua shall suffer persecution. James chapter 1, verse 12, blessed is he that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which Yahweh has promised to them that love him. Blessed is the man that endures. Salvation is not guaranteed at baptism or acceptance of the Messiah. The journey of salvation begins at baptism and is achieved only after we have endured a life of faithfulness and obedience. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 20. For what glory is it when you be buffeted for your faults, you shall take it patiently. But if when you do well and suffer for it, you take it patiently, this is acceptable with Yahweh. I will end my opening with the 6 seals in Revelation with this last verse, which was in a letter Paul wrote to Smyrna assembly. Revelations chapter 2, verse 10. Fear none of those things which you shall suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you in prison, that you may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be you faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. Now that is what it is all about. It's what you've been waiting for. The 6 seals of Revelation. What was the biggest question of the end of times prophecy? Don't worry, I'm fixing to tell you. Who is worthy to strip the seals binding the scroll? Answer, the Lamb. Yes, brothers and sisters, the Lamb of Yahweh, the Messiah, who gave his life for our sins. Revelations chapter 6, verse 1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts crying, Come and see. Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 through 5. And Yeshua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. Also in the notes is an explanation of the beast that exclaimed this. Four living creatures, which represent the four horsemen, these apocalyptic creatures correspond to Yeshua's Olivet prophecy in Matthew 24, and likely depict the time of prior to the Great Tribulation, the first 3.5 years of the 7-year covenant. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. He shall cause the sacrifice and the oblations to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations. He shall make it desolate, even unto the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Most of this message is going to come strictly out of Revelations for the 6 seals. Revelations chapter 6, verse 2, and I saw and behold, a white horse, and a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. Verse goes along with that. You can find in Psalms chapter 11, verse 2. For lo, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privily shoot at the upright in heart. Revelation 6:2, the white horse is deception. Likely the anti-Messiah spoken of in Matthew 24, verses 4 through 5, are false ministers in general. False ministers. That's what we got out here on First Day Church, or circuses now. Revelations chapter 6, verse 3, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. Matthew chapter 24, verse 6 through 7, and you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. A lot of this is going on right now. Revelations chapter 6, verses 4 through 5. And there went out another horse that was red, and the power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given to him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. The verse that corresponds with that can be found in Jeremiah chapter 15, verse 2. And it shall come to pass that they say unto you, Whither shall we go forth? Then you shall tell them, Thus says Yahweh, such as are for death to death, and such as for the sword to the sword, and such as for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. People, there's a storm brewing. Revelations chapter 6, verse 5, the black horse, that's famine. How many crops have failed over the last couple of years due to too much rain or not enough rain? Look at the prices on the shelves in the grocery store. You think the recession's over? You keep watching, because you're going to see it getting worse than that. Revelations chapter 6, verse 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see that you hurt not the oil and the wine. A measure of wheat for a penny. Food will be so scarce that grain must be weighed out in minute quantities, and care must be taken not to waste the oil or wine, which is likely a parallel to Ezekiel's prophecy of the final days of siege of Jerusalem. That's Jerusalem. Ezekiel chapter 4, verses 16 through 17. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with care, and they shall drink water by measure and with astonishment, that they might want bread and water, and he is stunned one with another, and consumed away for their iniquity. Revelations chapter 6, verses 7 through 8. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and the grave followed with him. And power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and the beasts of the earth. Pale horse, death, possibly from pestilence, also part of Matthew 24, verse 7. The word pale is derived from the Greek word chloros, which means green or pale green. Revelations 6, verse 9. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Yahweh and the testimony for which they held. Genesis chapter 4, verse 10, Yahweh speaking to Cain, and he said, What hast thou done? The voice of your brother's blood cries from the ground. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12, Yea, and that all that will live piously in Messiah Yeshua shall suffer persecution. Revelations chapter 12, verse 11, And they overcame him with the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Great tribulation has mentioned earlier in a footnote of Revelation 6:9. Let's look at a few verses that speak of this point in time. Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. Come, my people, enter you into your chambers and shut your doors about you. Hide yourselves as if it were for a little moment, until the indignation be past. Here he is using Yahweh's figuring of time. A day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3, Seek you Yahweh, all you meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be you shall be hid in the day of Yahweh's anger. In this verse I just read, the his is not capital H. So who would this be? First part is, Seek you, Yahweh, all you meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. His, in the small h, is Satan himself. Revelations 12, verse 14, And to the women were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished per time and times and half time from the face of the serpent. I've already explained that per times, a times, and half a time before. It's the first part of the 7-year tribulation that is coming. During this time, others will die as a testimony or witness to their faith. Dan chapter 7, verse 25, And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until that a time and times and a dividing of time. There again, his is not capitalized. It means will be given into Satan's hands. Revelations chapter 6, verse 10. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Yahweh, holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? These are cries from those who have been slain and are under the table in Yahweh's presence, that are yelling for the time to come now. These are the saints that were destroyed for their beliefs, for what they preached and everything else, yelling for the end of times to come so they can be set free again. Jeremiah chapter 15, verse 15. O Yahweh, you know us. Remember me and visit me and revenge me of my persecutors. Take me not away in thy long suffering. Know that for the sake I have suffered rebuke. Revelations chapter 6, verse 11. And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. This he's talking to those that are underneath the table. He's going to go ahead and give them their white robes, but they're still going to have to sleep in the ground. This is just a metaphor. They're already up there. This is a metaphor. They're still in the ground. Their breath, whenever they died, went back to the Father. But their bodies, dust by now, since it's about 4,000 years ago, is still in the ground. His breath goes forth, he returns to the earth. In that very day, his thoughts perish. When you die, your thoughts perish, you're in the ground. Your breath returns to the Father, like I just said. Revelations 6. Never mind, I got confused. Revelations chapter 14, verse 13. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Right blessed are the dead which die in the Spirit from henceforth, yea, say the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. Revelations chapter 6, verse 12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a greater earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 19 through 20. The earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean, dissolved. The earth is more exceedingly. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall fall and not rise again. Amos chapter 8, verse 9. And it shall come to pass in that day, says my sovereign Yahweh, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. Haggai chapter 2, verse 6 through 7. For thus says Yahweh of hosts, Yet once it is a little while, and I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and dry land. And I will shake all nations, and desire of all nations shall come. And I will fill the house with glory, says Yahweh of hosts. You get the hint yet that Revelations, and these are all done by the prophets 3,000 years ago. And so many of these prophecies that they prophesied have come true. Believe it or not, right now, the whole world is now Israel. We are all Jewish descent. No matter what country you came from before, If you'll remember the Tower of Babylon, when all the languages were changed, how they scattered to different countries, you are a Jewish descendant. You are an Israeli. So don't take it out on Israel now. It's too late. It's in your blood. No matter what color we are, or what language we speak, or what country, whether you like it or not, we are all brothers and sisters, even though many would not claim to be. But we have to cut them a little slack and cut them some consideration that they may not be into the scriptures as we are. Sorry, I got a little carried away. Yeah, I love this job. Revelations chapter 6, verse 13. And the stars fell from heaven unto the earth, even as the fig tree cast her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 10. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his growing forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Revelations chapter 6, verse 14. And the heavens departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their place. Isaiah chapter 34, verse 4. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as the leaf falls off of the vine, and as a falling fig from a fig tree. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. That was from Isaiah chapter 51, verse 6. Revelations chapter 6, verse 15. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, every free man, hid themselves in dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 19. And they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, for fear of Yahweh, and for the glory of his majesty will he arise to shake the terrible. Revelations chapter 6, verse 16. And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Hosea chapter 10, verse 8. And I will betroth thee unto me forever in Elam, which is Hebrew for time out of mind. Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness, and in the judgment, and in loving kindness, and in mercies. Revelations chapter 6, verse 17. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Daniel chapter 7, verse 27. And the kingdom, and the dominion, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Zechariah chapter 12 has 9 verses in it. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 1 through 9. The burden of the word of Yahweh for Israel says, Yahweh, which stretches forth the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth, and forms the spirit of man in him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all people round about, when they shall be in siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. In the day, says Yahweh, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and I will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in Yahweh of hosts, their Elohim. In that day I will make the governors of Judah like a hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about, on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. Yahweh also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day shall Yahweh defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as Elohim, as the angel of Yahweh before them. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. That is the end of that. But if you read your scriptures, mostly Psalms, which David had a lot to write about in them, you'll know when he lost his child with Bathsheba, what he did. He laid on his stomach, face to the floor, for days with his arms outstretched, praying for forgiveness that his baby would not die. Yet Yahweh knew he had to punish him for his role in Bathsheba's husband's death and taking a married woman. He had to pay. If you continue to read the story of David, you will find out he had nothing but trouble with his family, his sons, one of them raping his own sister, the other one trying to take the kingdom from him. People, it is time now to start raising your hands and bowing your heads and learn the true name of the Father and the Son. The Father's true name is Yahweh. Your seminary, college educated preacher, minister, priest, whatever you've got behind that podium, knows the truth. They know the names of the Father and the Son. They will not tell you, but you can ask them. And as proof that they know, they won't tell you. If they do, be surprised, because nobody else does. I offer through the Assembly of Yeshua in Kingdom City, if y'all would like more truth in scriptures in booklet form, we print 20 some odd booklets off. If you would like to know more, email me and request a list of what we've got, and I will send you a copy of our booklets. Truth in Scripture is separate from the assembly I belong to, but I run the print shop. We've got all the booklets. Everything comes straight out of Scriptures. There's nothing but truth in these booklets. So if you want to know more about the truth in Scriptures, please email me at this email address, and I will send you a list of the booklets we have. May Yahweh bless, and y'all have a good weekend.